Hi, I'm Andresito. Some of you also know me as Mr. V. Welcome back to class. Today, we'll be continuing our lesson on drawing heads. In the last video, we were discussing symmetry. As a quick reminder, symmetry can look something like this. Using parallel or mirroring lines that are equidistant from one another, we can make sure that the parts of our faces are also parallel and equidistant from one another. Also, shout out to my sister-in-law for drawing this cool picture of me. Anyways, today's vocabulary and art lesson starts with perspective. If we break that word down to its prefix, root, and suffix, we get a better understanding of what that word means. Per, in this sense, is completely. Spect, like spectacles, the glasses I'm wearing on my face, means to see. And iv indicates it's an action that's happening. That means perspective is how you view something. That's a lot of talking, so let me give some examples. I'm going to draw some heads from different perspectives to give you guys a better understanding. Now, there are three primary, that means most important, viewpoints or angles for drawing heads. Viewpoints and angles are other ways of saying perspective, by the way. Number 1, a head facing forward, also known as front view. Number 2, which is common on US coins, is a turn to the side or profile view of a head. Number 3 is the one that we're going to focus on the most today. It's the in-between of facing forward and a profile. It's the partially turned 3/4 view. It's funny that I mentioned 3/4 because that's kind of like math, and we're going to get into some geometry here. I know what you're thinking, Mr. V, I'm like 9. There's no way I'm going to understand geometry. And that's okay. You don't have to fully understand any of this stuff. But this stuff is always here for you to reference and come back to. So when you're 13 and 14 and you have a better understanding of geometry, this will make more sense. Last week I hinted that the word imply was going to be important. Some would say that I implied that imply was important. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the word imply, it's a verb that is an action word that we can add ed or ing to. To imply is to express or suggest something, the action of suggestion. Drawing, specifically perspective drawing, is all about suggestion. Paper is flat, but the things we often draw on paper are not. Everybody touch your head. See how not flat it is? That's the difference between things that are 2D and 3D. You guys ever notice when you're drawing on paper, you have a long end of the paper and a short end of the paper? Depending on how you're holding your paper, you have one end that goes up and down and another that goes left and right. Up and down we refer to as vertical, and left and right we call horizontal. Things that go up and down and left and right are two-dimensional. Everything you draw is two-dimensional. If you think about it, when you're drawing, everything has to stay within your paper, right? I mean, sure, you guys could probably just draw on the desk or table, but you know that upsets me. But even still, you could only move your pencil up and down or left and right in some variation. The difference between these flat faces that I've drawn and your cute little chubby cheeked faces is the third dimension. That's how far out something comes. Since we can't make something actually pop out of our paper, we have to imply it using perspective. See how I made this square a cube? We're gonna try to do the same thing with a face. Let's think of it this way. Wait, hold on, I almost forgot. Perpendicular. Kinda crazy that I went over parallel and started talking about horizontal and vertical without going into perpendicular. Perpendicular is kind of like the opposite of parallel. They're when two lines intersect or cut between one another. This is where we find angles, but we'll get into that in other videos. Right now, just think about the line that I usually draw down the middle of the face. All the other reference lines are perpendicular to that line. Sorry, I know that's probably a lot for some of you, but I also know that there's a lot of you that are super into this kind of stuff. So for you all, I just want you to know that lines aren't the only thing that can be perpendicular. Planes can be perpendicular. Planes are things that exist in three-dimensional space. We'll get into that later. I've digressed for too long. Digress means to go off track. When we're drawing a 3/4 view head, With perspective, we need to imagine drawing a head within a box. Not like a box, but like, like not like a square, but like a box. Like see what I'm doing here? See how I drew a box and then I put a head inside the box? That's what I'm talking about. Anyways, this was how I implied 3 dimensions, even though I'm doing it in a 2-dimensional space. That's perspective, basically. Great job making it through this video. There was a lot of stuff we went over, and I know it was probably hard for some of you. It might have even frustrated some of you, but you guys have to understand that that's all part of learning, and if you want to become better artists, you have to allow yourself to get a little frustrated sometimes, and push yourself into learning things. I want you all to always remember, there is no such thing as perfect, at least when it comes to art. Everything takes practice and patience. Don't let mistakes frustrate you. They're a part of the process and a sign that you're trying. Thanks for watching, and keep learning.